Hello, it's Arthur, and I'm filming again. So it's been a while since I filmed a video, probably the longest amount of time between videos in the entire 4 years that I've had this channel. And, you know, there's the classic reason for that. I'm a post-transition trans guy, I've got a lot of friends, I've got a busy calendar, I'm in my 5th year of grad school, you know, a lot going on in life, and taking the time to sit down, script and film these videos and edit them, you know, it's a real task, and it comes at the expense of other things in a very fulfilling life. That's not the entire reason. I have had a lot going on in the entire chunk of time that I've had this channel, and normally it hasn't been so hard to find the time to set aside to do these things. I think the biggest reason, which is going to be the theme of this video, the thing I need to get off my chest, is that I spent a good chunk of the summer embroiled in an existential crisis of sorts. I mean, perhaps the existential crisis. And that has really interacted with the way that I've thought about my transition, and it has put a real, like, roadblock in my mind when it has come to filming videos. So, in particular, this summer I hit 4 years on testosterone. I have filmed these annual, like, you know, years on testosterone videos, and they are my favorite to film. I find them very emotional, talking about all the changes and talking about the way my life has evolved, and really taking that time to, like, reflect on where I've come and where I'm going. I hit 4 years on testosterone, and I was pretty stressed out about other things, and I couldn't find a way to encapsulate this past year in some sort of clean, concise narrative. And the idea of, like, filming that video with this sort of arc of, like, okay, life was bad and now life is amazing, and thank God I'm not pre-transition anymore, thank God years 1 and 2 and 3 are done and those were terrible, you know, felt very, like, not authentic to me. And there was some sort of deeper message I wanted to convey about how I feel about my transition, that I just couldn't figure out how to write in a, you know, 12-minute video that was going to be, you know, set to dumb YouTube copyright-free music with photos of my face appearing, and I just got too perfectionistic about it, and so I didn't film that video, but I was always like, okay, well, that's the video I'm gonna film before I get back into filming videos. And so because I never felt able to talk about how I thought about year 4 on testosterone, I didn't talk about any of the other stuff that feels a lot more accessible to me. And so, you know, now, New Year's resolution, film more videos. I just had to get this off my chest before I can move on to, like, a bunch of the other sort of, you know, easier and probably better content that I have coming out. So I guess, to dive into it, I don't know where to start. Okay, well, I'll start in a kind of random place. My boyfriend and I have been going to a lot of weddings. He is 29 and I'm 26, and so it's wedding season for him in particular. And he was at this one wedding where I wasn't there because I was burnt out of weddings. And so people were asking him about what he loves about me and what he loves about our relationship. And the thing he said was that what he loves about me is my love of life. And when he told me that when he got back, I thought that was really sweet, because that is, like, the thing that I identify most with. Like, I love life, and I think that is one of my top attributes. Like, if you were to say, who is Arthur? If there's an adjective that means, like, love of life, which maybe there is in my vocabulary, just isn't good enough for it, but that adjective, that's, like, what I am, number one. Like, a very passionate person. And that wasn't who I always was. Like, before transition, I certainly don't think anyone would have described me that way, and it's something that I think I've really grown into in this past handful of years. I think that I have felt this feeling for the past few years that life has felt, like, unreasonably good. Like, I mean this so seriously, like, I think I'm one of the happiest people I know, and I feel immensely fortunate to whatever happened in some past life of mine that I got to exist in this form right now and get to do all the things I get to do. Like, I will wake up and I'll walk down the street and I'll, like, look at the world around me and think about the friends I'm going to see later that day and think about the research I'm going to do at work, and I'll just feel, like, really happy, and I just will smile to myself, and that's the kind of person I am. And I had, you know, this had been a growing thing where I was starting to get worried about the passage of time. I used to not be afraid of the passage of time, and I used to, in fact, like, really welcome it, right? Like, when I was in high school, I remember we were given these planners, and every month, you know, so I think the planner, like in the back of it, had all 4 years or something. And so I would like cross off each month, of the 4 years, and then I would calculate like what fraction of high school am I done with, because I was like ready to go. I didn't like it. I was so excited for college, and there was always like something I was like looking forward to as the next step. So like, if it felt like a week sped by when I was 17, I was like, thank God, because I'm a week closer to college, which is when I'll finally be happy. And then when I was in college, I wasn't that happy, and so I was like, well, when I graduate college, that's when I'll start my PhD, and then I'll be happy. And then eventually, I mean, it took longer than I expected, but I became happy, and sometime around 22, 23, I transitioned and I started my PhD and I started living on my own. Well, by on my own, I mean with a bunch of roommates. But I got to like do my own groceries and set up my own room and like have an agency and all that. And I felt like an adult, like a big kid for the first time. And when people would meet me, they would meet real me, and I felt like really self-actualized. And I was so happy to finally be Arthur. And I was so happy that all of a sudden it didn't feel like I like wanted things to be moving fast. and so I was getting anxious about that, right? Like it felt like I blinked my eyes and suddenly I was 25 and then suddenly I was 26, and like how did that happen? And when I talk with friends, like that's like a common feeling I think in your 20s, and for a lot of people it would be like, oh gosh, like I don't want to age and I don't want to get old, and like my youth is a core part of me. And I don't know that it was quite that for me. Like I think I have a very youthful energy about me, and for sure I think that whatever iteration of myself I turn into when I'm in my 30s and 40s and 50s, I will look different. But I'm excited about that. I think it'll be pretty cool, to be 50 and to be like a tenured professor and have a few children and have a robust network of friends who are parents and colleagues. And I think life will be great. I'm not like worried about having wrinkles, none of that. But I was getting increasingly worried about the fact that, like, this, like, clock was going, like, faster, and, like, that, even if I'm not worried about turning 50, I am a little worried about, like, will I make it to 92, and, like, there's some point at which you start to be like, okay, well, And so that was, like, lingering in the back of my head, this feeling that, like, okay, I'm happy now, and so, like, I would like to hit pause, please. Like, it finally happened for me, I transitioned and life became good, and, like, so please stop. And I'd been thinking about that for a while. And then my grandfather ended up having sort of a terminal diagnosis. And at this point, all of my grandparents have died, so it wasn't new to me the idea that someone could die in my life. But what was new is that my 3 other grandparents their deaths were a surprise. I mean, not a surprise in the sense that they were all, like, well within the sort of actuarial age that you might expect someone might die, so, in that sense, no, but in the sense that it wasn't like they were told by a doctor, like, you have X number of months and plan accordingly. And my grandfather was told that. He was told, like, you have, like, you have 3 months. And I think in basically all respects, my grandfather's death was the best of all of my grandparents, and it was, I mean, my mom would describe it as actually very beautiful. He was 92, happy, got to die in his own home, surrounded by his children, like, and we all got to say goodbye, so that was all very beautiful. And I think that what really caused this incident to sort of light the match of the, like, full-on existential crisis was that I got to experience, like, hearing a person that knew they were gonna die and seemed like he'd mostly made peace with it. There's a little bit of a silly backstory, which is that my grandmother had died earlier than him, and they had this agreement that they were going to spend 2 years in mourning and then they would date. And so he was dating, and he was seeing this woman, and as he was approaching death, was talking about how he was excited to be reunited with my late grandmother, and that, like, that made her feel bad, and then she was very clingy, and then there was this really, I think, iconic quote from him where he told her, name, let's say Elizabeth, I have 2 months left to live and I don't want to spend it in drama, which I thought was very funny and very, like, on brand for him. But yeah, so he, like, was thinking about, like, the afterlife and was thinking about my grandmother, and, like, I think there were a lot of reasons that it felt like he'd made peace with his death, and I think many of them were that he lived a good life. He saw that his offspring were living happy and fulfilling lives, but also this belief that there was something beyond, and this like longing and yearning to return to my grandmother. And so, weirdly enough, seeing that he had made peace with his own mortality made me feel like, oh my god, I will never make peace with my own mortality. I have been raised in a very, like, analytical culture of people that are science and math and rational and all that, and not very religious and not very spiritual. And so, you know, if you asked me, I would be like, okay, yeah, there is no afterlife. I know what it, you know, when I fall asleep and I have no consciousness, or when I get put under anesthesia and I have no consciousness and there's just black, like, that's what it will be. I'm not gonna be reunited with anyone. There's nothing awaiting me. It is just the end of everything. And suddenly that didn't, like, feel that great. Like, I was like, oh wow, how is it ever gonna be that when I'm 80 and I'm thinking about the end of my life, like, I don't think that I have that coming for me, like that peace that he has, because I don't have those beliefs. And, like, the whole thing about me is I love life, so how can it be that, like, I love life and I really don't want this ever to end, and yet it will? Yeah, and so it's a little dumb to say all this, because, and I think I've resorted to humor, when I was at the peak of all of this, because, well, because that's how I cope with things, but also because I know that it's a little silly. It is, like, the existential crisis, and it is not at all, like, novel or interesting that I am dealing with these thoughts. I think every person in the course of their life will wrestle with them. My boyfriend has been, like, the most lovely person to talk with about this, in part because he is just, like, not like me, and I think you couldn't have two people that are freaking out about this at the same time. And he was like, yeah, I had those thoughts, like, when I was 8. And he's very, like, matter-of-fact about it, where he's like, yeah, I mean, it's the last thing that I need to worry about is what will happen after I'm gone, because, in fact, I won't be there to experience it, so why would I have to worry about what it will be like? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but, and yeah, so, like, in the summer, this was, like, really kicking up for me, and it was, like, it was in the peak of it, and again, it sounds dumb to say, because I just know, it's like, this is what humanity has wrestled with forever. It is not new or special to me that I will die, but at the peak of it all, it was, like, one of my worst, like, mental health moments of the past handful of years. We were about to, like, fly out on a trip the next morning, my boyfriend and I, like, had him come over, because I was just, like, totally dissociating, and I think, like, in that moment, I'm laughing, because, again, I know it sounds stupid, which is part of why I haven't, like, filmed this video, is because it's stupid, but it's, like, real and true, and this is, like, really how it was for me, was that I was freaking out about also just, like, the thing that I will hear agnostic people say, or people that don't have any particular religious affiliation, is, like, you get, like, returned to the earth, and, you know, you live on in the memories of other people, and you know, like, you know, we're all humanity together, and, like, all that stuff. Well, and I was freaking out because I was like, yeah, but, like, one day Earth will die, and the sun will die, and all of humanity will die, and so how can I use that as, like, this feeling that, like, oh, I will exist forever, because there is literally nothing that is forever, and so I was, like, dissociating and crying, and then, like, when I wasn't, I was saying to him, I was just like, but the sun will die, and then my boyfriend was just, like, laughing, in like, the best way for that situation. He was laughing, he was like, I just don't think you need to worry about that. Anyways, and the reality is, so it's been, like, 6 months since then, and when I was talking with my parents in the peak of all this, my dad told me that he went through the exact same thing as me, and he went through it, you know, not when he was 8 or whatever, but when he was in his 40s, and it happens at any point in time, and in his case, it was because my mom, when I was in middle school, had breast cancer, and he was saying that when she was coming out of it, actually, and things were actually looking like it was going to go well, and it was going to be cured, that was when he started to reconcile that, like, okay, even if it was cured this time around, we all are actually going to die at some point for sure, and that was when he had to deal with that, and he was telling me that he was like, yeah, like, but when he came through it, like, it felt like life actually, like, did feel way more meaningful upon having had those reflections, and that's, I think, where I'm at right now, is I don't have, like, this, like, clean answer for what the meaning of life is, and I don't have any sort of, like, one bullet of, like, what is the answer to the fact that we'll all die. I think that reflecting more and trying to make peace with my own mortality has been really a great journey for me. And I think that it has made me a lot more spiritual in a way that I think is like very positive. Which is to say that I feel very, I do feel very like connected to humanity, and like part of something. Like I think the way I was raised with such like so much goal setting, it was always like, okay, like something I was talking about with a friend is that our parents were very down on people that would like spend time thinking about beauty or like prioritize beauty in any way, because they were like, well, beauty goes away. And then there was always this thing like, you have to like work on like intellectual goals, like you have to do well in classes, you have to learn, you have to progress your mind, because that like lasts and beauty does not last. And so I think there's this kind of attitude of like, okay, like if you do like the right steps, like, and then if you do the right steps, the if you do that all, then you're immortal. I mean, not like really, but it's like kind of like, oh, well, the intelligence lasts. No, intelligence does not last. That will also go. Everything that I've worked for will go. Some things will go quicker than others, but all of it eventually is temporary. And so I think that I had really in the back of my mind this feeling that like you could win like life and you could like conquer things and you could give yourself forever, and I just think that's not true, and that's been very helpful. Like, it's been a good source of growth to think about that, and I think I've been way more appreciative of like of just life and existing. Like, I think the biggest thing that has helped me is realizing that I don't know why I am. Like, I don't know why I am conscious. It's true that, you know, there will be different, like science can talk about, you know, why antidepressants work, or which sort of, why, which sort of parts in the brain fire up when you're having certain emotional responses, and like there's lots of scientific study on the brain, but you can't have like a clean, concise answer as to like what is consciousness, why are we us, you know, like where did that all come from? Like that is sort of like a like a more philosophical question. Because believe me, I tried to like find the readings on that. It's like there's not like one clean answer to why we are what we are, and why is it that I see the world through my eyes and I feel things and I see colors and I can touch stuff, and like why is it that I get those sensory experiences, and so realizing that like, okay, like I don't know, there's a lot of things I don't know, and so if I don't even know that, how am I to know what it is like, you know, when consciousness goes away? And I think that's made me appreciative of like how cool it is that I get to, I don't know, just like if you look at colors, like colors are very cool, and it's really cool that I experience that, and every single person in the entire world does, and that doesn't make it like less cool, and I don't need to be like special, right? Like there's something like inherently special about life. I don't need to be, I guess, unique. I don't need to be different for my life to be really meaningful. And so I guess that all loops back to transition, in that I feel that there's often this recurrent thread, which is that like life is not meaningful for pre-transition trans people. It is horrible and pointless, and that the only life worth living is one as a post-transition trans person. And there's this temptation to write these like very linear narratives where you're like, okay, it was bad, then it was better, then it was even better, and now it's done. I feel now far more able to be grateful for having got to go through all it. It's like, I think transition wasn't something that I had to go through. It was something that I was lucky enough to get to experience. Like, I think that not everyone, like, there is such a like profound specialness and profound like meaning to being able to like think about what you want from life, and thinking about who you are, and about how you want to interact in the world, and how you want people to see you, and to know what steps you need to take to get there, and to do it. I think that's so cool. And like many people will live their lives like yearning for something and not actually take those steps. Now, transition is difficult and transition is hard, but that does not mean it is bad, and that does not mean the experience of going through it is bad, or like that I wish that I could just snap my fingers and have it all go away. I feel very grateful to have those memories, and I think that there's something very beautiful about the process. And I think about like, you know, even the difficult parts of like being misgendered, having hard conversations, trying on clothing and they don't fit, that all of that was part of like this very special experience, and part of something that connects me to people beyond myself. I meet a lot of post-transition trans guys these days, because I'm very lucky in many ways, and one thing that I think is really cool is that like we can go through and talk about our shared history, and part of that shared history is like shared challenging things. Like we can go through and be like, how did you know that you were ready for top surgery, or like how was it coming out to your parents, or talk about our, you know, whatever forms of testosterone we use, you know, or like when we got certain changes, or how do we know, you know, how did we know that we were meant to do this? And even though we're all now done with it, we like there's a really like shared special history. And I think about all these beautiful people that I know who are trans guys who have followed this path that I followed, and all of the beautiful trans people I will never meet who I just I know have followed this path, and all the people who came before me that made this possible for me, and all the people that will come after me. Like I think it's very cool that I will get comments all the time from people talking about how when they first started watching my channel, they were questioning, and now they're like a year on testosterone. I think that's amazing. And I think about all these people, and I'm like, I am so lucky to be part of this. Like, this is something bigger than myself that I got to experience. It's true that now I like have stubble, and I have broader shoulders, and I have a deeper voice. But life was meaningful then, and life is meaningful now, and I'm so happy. I would never want to go back, but I'm happy I got to go through all of it. And yeah, I don't know, I think I'll never be able to fit all these thoughts into the most succinct and eloquent way, and I will film a 5 years on T video, and it might not be perfect, but I just wanted to, you know, have a shot at rambling about this. And I think part of it is like I intentionally film stuff on this channel when I'm in a place with reflection that I feel like pretty confident about stuff. Like I don't often put just like raw content out there, but because I don't think that's good for me, and I don't think that's good for you. And this is not like this is like somewhat raw. Like I feel pretty stable, but I also don't have any clear answers. But I think I realized that, I don't know, like there just might not be a clear answer. It's true that it's like, you know, it's like the thing humans have wrestled with forever, and I'm probably not going to be the one person to fix it. And I think that I have some sort of, yeah, like, I'm like humble enough to know that I think that nothing I'm saying here is that new or adding that much to the conversation. But yeah, I just wanted to get this out there and to talk a little bit about how I'm thinking about and approaching life now. Yeah, and so I am gonna be filming a lot more videos, and I am still referencing, so I had a form that I'm gonna put in the comments of this video for like sort of my Trans Hope series, and I'm still referencing people's submissions from that. So if you want to put anything in, feel free to go for it, or feel free to leave ideas in the comments now that I'm actually active again. All right, Happy New Year.